wanted to come on here and talk about some of the general consensus of labor and delivery care providers. And it's not limited to, labor and delivery RNs or, providers, your midwives, your doctors, your anesthesiologists, you name it. It's really, and it's not everybody. So I'm not putting everybody in the same box, but I'm giving you the general consensus of most of the care providers. And so watch until the end. Again, it's not everybody. So please comment below if you are an exception, but we're talking about the perception, the general perception that's kind of the majority in these healthcare settings. And it's going to be important because you want to choose the facility, you want to choose the birth environment that's most supportive for your birth plan. You want to choose your care providers, your support persons. All of these things matter into having the desired outcome for your birth plan and your birth wishes. So let's talk more about it. So I don't have a strong opinion about this video that's surfacing, but I just wanted to come on because I wanted to give you the perception of the healthcare provider, the labor and delivery provider, whether it be the nurse or the birth worker, you name it, the providers, and kind of give you the general consensus of what the perception is when a client comes in. They're empowered, they have their informed choices, so they have a birth plan that's written. So ideally, when a client comes in, so when you come in with your birth plan, for the most part, your labor and delivery care providers, it's not in direct flow with what the care that they're used to providing. So there's different settings, and you want to make sure your setting supports your wishes, right? I say that to say whenever you come in and you have a birth plan, especially if it's written, we'll talk more about that, what that means to a labor and delivery nurse as well. When you have a birth plan that's written and you have choices and you have informed choices and decisions that you set before coming to the hospital, and you present that to your labor and delivery nurse, the general consensus is that it may go against a policy or procedure that they're, again, used to providing that general care. So their care is not always individualized. So because of the policies and procedures, the care is pretty generalized. And so your birth plan may be going against some of the interventions that they want to offer you, or that they feel that they have to offer you. And so your birth plan may not always be supported by a labor and delivery care team in the hospital setting. And from my experience in the labor and delivery care experience in the hospital setting, if you present with a birth plan, especially if it's written, the general consensus is, and again, it's not everybody, it's limited to, so it's not going to include everybody, we're saying, but the majority of the population believes that if you write it down, if you put it in writing, and you present to labor and delivery with your birth plan, whether your birth wishes, what you'd like done, your birth, hey buddy, your birth plan, whether you want to deliver, what positions, if you want to have a vaginal birth, if you want to avoid a episiotomy, so just some of the standard things that come in a birth plan, or your birth wishes. Most labor and delivery care providers believe if you come with that written down, that it's going to go the complete opposite way, and you will end up in a C-section, because the idea is, and you're not allowing, nature, you're not allowing, your baby, you're not allowing just the birth experience to unfold naturally, and you're kind of imposing your wishes on the birth experience. And I think everybody has different reasons why they believe your birth plan will end up in a C-section, but that's ideally your labor and delivery care team believes if you come with a birth plan, oh yeah, she's going to end up in a C-section, she has a birth plan. And so it is unfortunate, and my labor and delivery nurses that I love might give me pushback here, but just comment below, because you know who I am, you know how I am, and supportive of all the clients and that come in with their birth plans and wishes. So I'm not coming for all of my labor and delivery providers. I'm just speaking to this video that's surfacing and kind of giving us an idea of why this could be. And it's because the culture is we do way more in the hospital setting. So we do IVs, you're in a certain position, you are getting this, you're getting that, you have to get this consent for this, so we have so many more interventions. So when you come in and you want low intervention and you don't want to be bothered, they're like, well, why did she even come here in the first place? She should have stayed home. She should have went to the birth center. Why is she even here if she doesn't want our help? And so I think the misunderstanding from the healthcare provider or the birth team is that the patient that wants less done doesn't really want your help. And I think that I could speak for both sides, because again, I've been a patient giving birth, and I've been a labor and delivery nurse, and I've been a certified nurse midwife in all settings. So I think both sides can use a little bit more grace and a little bit more love. I think the labor and delivery nurse can see it as, sometimes the client is more high risk and they can't do an out-of-hospital birth, or sometimes the client is, afraid, or maybe one party of the client's loved ones is afraid to do an out-of-hospital birth, and it's not always the client herself, but maybe the grandparents or maybe the significant other is afraid to do a home birth or out-of-hospital birth. So the happy medium is coming to the hospital setting but doing less intervention. So there's a list of reasons that it can be, and then I think on the other end you have your patient or client that comes in and believes that the hospital setting, because they couldn't get the out-of-hospital birth or that home birth or you name it, then they believe that the hospital setting is going to be completely against what their wishes are. And so they come in with a defense. So oftentimes you see the wall or the defense of care, and that they're kind of denying all care, and it's usually not, it's usually based out of fear, because they're afraid that you're going to overdo and over intervene and cause them to have a C-section. This is what I've found over my practice of time. So if you're the patient, if you're the client, if you're the labor and delivery nurse, you're the labor and delivery provider, and you have an opinion on this, then I would love to hear it. This is my opinion. Thank God I can't be wrong for my opinion, because that's what it is. It is what it is. And so, yeah, totally can't be wrong for my opinion. So don't shoot the messenger. So I think that's really what we have going on here. And so you have two sides that are coming together. So labor and delivery nurse obviously loves what she does and wants to provide the best care, but to her or him, that best care is a list of interventions based on the setting that she's in. And if you're denying all of her interventions, then she thinks you don't want her help, and why are you here in the first place? And then you get this conflict of interest, and it does impact the client's birth experience. It impacts the nurse's interaction with the client, whether she intervened with different positioning, whether she, supported that birth plan, and then it ultimately impacts the client's birth outcomes. So I think this video that's surfacing, it really illumines and calls to our attention of working together with love and working together in unison for the same cause, right? So the greater good and the same cause is to have a healthy baby, healthy mom, and that's usually the consensus with labor and delivery nurses and providers. Hey, Milo. Hi, buddy. So I think, and then you have the patients again, or the clients that can't have that setting, or maybe they weren't able to get the setting that they desired, and so they're coming with defenses already up regarding the hospital setting. And so I think on both ends it deems an self-evaluation and more love and more gentleness with the approach to both sides. And I think also it's going to be important, and we'll do another video on this, for the client to actually do the healing work for the hospital setting, because I even had to do it, watch my birth experience on my other video, because I even had to release my fear, and I didn't want to let go of being in the hospital setting either. So I think it's so important. So you're going to have to surface some of your fear of birthing in a hospital setting. What is it? What does it look like? And if you have fear, surface it, address it, and do the healing work that you need to do. So I think that's going to be key for the client. So you're more fluid, and you're more easygoing, and you're more downstream with the birth process, right? Because you have to trust the process, and that includes trusting the team members. So you have to trust everybody that comes through your door, everybody that comes into your experience is coming from within, and that your experience will, nature will take its course, and the powers that be, and so you have to trust in the greater power, trust in your body, trust your baby. You have to release control anyway. And so I think if the client can come in with that perception, then that will decrease the defense, and then the labor and delivery providers also would have to change their perception on the client who's once less done, and to kind of nurture and support some of those birth plan wishes, and kind of, the provider will have to, like we said, you saw the video, the provider will have to kind of do some healing work too, and kind of releasing of some of those stereotypes of the client that comes in and doesn't want anything done, or the client that's going natural or unmedicated. From my experience, and comment below if you're not one of those, but from my experience, most most labor delivery nurses and providers, the client's going natural or medicated, they're like, oh my god, I don't even want to deal, she's going to end up getting an epidural anyway, why is she even trying, let's see how far she can get without an epidural. And so usually, and not always, but I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate with this whole ick video that's going out there, and kind of seeing how we can support each other, move forward for the greater good of birthing safely, birthing gently, calmly, and also empowering the birthing experience. So clients feel like they have a voice, and they feel like they are heard, and that they can speak out to their birth wishes and desires. Wrapping up this video, I also wanted to kind of encourage the client, or that birthing family, or that expecting mother and family, to really take score of your birth team, your birth experience, your birth environment. Is your team going to be supportive? And now you have an idea with this video what some of the general consensus is in some of those settings. Not everybody, again, you may have some outliers. You may have some of the nurses that are like, okay, they don't agree with that opinion, but again, you're going to want to make sure from the first prenatal visit that your providers support your plan, and not just as saying, well, how do they support the plan? Get an overview of how is it supported. Can you have less interventions in the hospital, or maybe just a saline lock versus not? So education is going to be key, because some patients, but they don't want a saline lock, and they don't even know what a saline lock is. So educating yourself is going to be key. What does a birth experience even entail? What are some emergency medications I might get? What are some interventions that might happen, and then what are you okay with? And so that's going to be key. Next thing that's going to be key is making sure your team supports your wishes. So from the first prenatal visit, and then if it's going to cost a little bit more, choose a different healthcare setting. Maybe you're going to go do the home birth. Maybe you're going to take chance on the birth process. Maybe you're going to be open and flexible. Maybe you're going to take a chance and pay a little bit more out of pocket, because sometimes insurance is not accepted. Maybe it's worth it to look into the other healthcare settings. But if you are going to birth in a hospital setting, then you're going to have to be fluid, you're going to have to be open, you're going to have to trust the process. So less defense mechanisms, more allowing, still having your voice, still having some of the interventions that you don't want done, still having your birth plan and wish, but trusting the process as well. And I think just decreasing that resistance, like I didn't do, because I'm speaking from experience, decreasing some of that resistance will help to things to flow as well. And then you won't radiate so much resistance, and then your encounters with your nurses and encounters with your doctors won't have as much resistance. So that will be key. And then your birth plan, letting your birth plan be very fluid, especially if something is happening, if there's an emergency or so, that's going to be key as well. And then for the labor and delivery nurse, a lot of you are moms, and a lot of you have been doing it a long time. So if you've been desensitized to the process, for those that feel this way with the ick video, or those that have some of those, general consensus and general beliefs and perceptions about the client that comes in and doesn't want much done, or the client that comes in and wants low intervention, unmedicated birth, that's empowered, that that's supported, that birth plan that's supported. It's just to change your powerful suggestion. So changing your perception about that client is going to be key. Okay, so putting yourself in someone else's shoes, how would you feel if your birth plan was kind of talked about at the nurse's station, or if your birth wishes was not honored, or if, someone came in every time and mentioned the word epidural because while you were, kind of getting through and, maybe ineffective or effectively coping. So just put yourself in someone else's shoes. I always love to treat people how I want to be treated, and that usually does it for me. It's like a no-brainer. If I'm treating people how I want to be treated, then I typically, it's a win-win, because I want to be treated with the best high quality, high everything wherever I go. Even if it's a grocery store experience, even if it's a barista, I want the high quality experience wherever I go. And so I treat people with the same high quality. And so treat people how you want to be treated. And then, if you're desensitized, if this is no longer your passion, maybe consider a different, setting. Maybe do OB/GYN clinic. Maybe you can even do like out of the hospital. So you could change your perception, or change your, your sensitization, or change your sensitivities rather to the birthing process. And then if it's something that you really do love, maybe it just needs a reset button where you kind of, evaluate your feelings, evaluate your perception, surface them so that you can allow for change and healing, whatever the reason is, and supporting your birthing mother that is coming in with her birth plan. And I think that if we do that, and we do all this in love, and we treat people how we want to be treated, then I think both sides can win. And again, because I know labor and delivery nurses, really just the biggest thing is safe baby, safe mom. You can healthy baby, healthy mom. That's like one of our sayings in labor and delivery. And so I know that those nurses meant well. My heart goes out to them and their families during this time, during this learning curve, because life is all about learning and life experiences and lessons. So during this life lesson that they have to experience, and even though it's for the world to see, and that it may not feel like the best learning experience, but my heart goes out to them, and it's definitely a learning curve for all of us. So thank you for experiencing it, and surfacing what changes we can make to improve the birthing experience for some of our birthing mamas. Thank you everyone for watching. That's it for today. I hope to see you in the next video. Au revoir. Merci.